Mayor Pro Tem Dickinson,
Here.
Councilmember Fahey,
Here.
Councilmember Lay,
Here.
Councilmember Bierman,
Here.
Councilmember Hefner,
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton, Councilmember Kern.
Okay, we have two items of business tonight, one regular business and then a request for an executive session. The only item regular business is resolution number 29, series 2024, resolution authorizing the city manager to take actions with respect to repairs at Steinbach Pavilion. May we have a staff presentation, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kurt Coer, Director of Public Works and Utilities. We messed with the tech. Thank you, Meredith. Just talking a little bit about Steinbach. I've had a lot of activity around that structure in that area in the last month. So many moving parts, many dynamics, and a lot of things that we thought were a year or two away or maybe beyond with us now. We've developed some options. And I'll start with the options. I'll go through some details. We'll finish with the options. But essentially, Steinbach was damaged by some significant winds a few weeks ago. And parallel to that, we were trying to keep the summer concert series moving as normal. So we had to make some quick decisions. And like any age structure, as you get into it, it starts to reveal more of itself and more costly repairs that may be needed. So we came to some decision points. And as we learned information, thought it would be good to check in with all of you. So what we knew as of last week, and maybe that's even evolved to today, is an option one that we've reviewed is just doing a full fix to the Steinbach Pavilion. Essentially, there's a phase one or a phase two, or we call it a summer or winter fix. As we got into the repairs, we realized there's a little more to it as far as the damages that were visible, and as far as modern code requirements for when you're having a concert and renting it out, and with lots of people under it. So option one is just to do a full fix, and that's around $70,000, and that encompasses the repairs we've done to date, the estimates we think we have for repairs to get it ready for winter snow loads, and then also to have some payback for stage rentals we did for the summer concert series. Option two is to just do the phase one fix, which is essentially complete. So that's the get it stabilized so that we can use it for the summer concert series. It's not stabilized for snow loads or winter use. Again, stage rentals are in there. We've also talked to the stage rental company, and we can secure a mobile stage for the rest of the concert series. And then we can have some time to see if there's other things we want to do with Steinbach, whether that's a complete repair or some partial demo or full demo with some preservation. A lot of this, again, is up for discussion. We're trying to give you the best information possible. We realize there's a lot of sensitivity around this particular structure with its value, depending on what that looks like to many people. So option three then is if people were excited about the stage, maybe buying our own stage. As we've worked harder to research more, that option seems to become more expensive, and the rental costs and effort as we first understood the rental stage, those costs have come down and seem more achievable than buying a stage, but we still put that option up here. So various options here of just preserving Steinbach, whether a full fix, use it as normal, partial fix to stabilize and then preserve, and then also an option to talk about a full stage for the city or rental. The history of this, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but I've had to collaborate with all the departments to bring together a lot of interest and a lot of information. So we had a lumber yard and a hardware store back in the 1800s. To date, that's roughly 130 years ago, so deep history in Louisville, right? That lasted until the 1970s, and then the hardware store and the lumber yard burned, but the barn persevered. And in 2003, the DBA raised $100,000, and with contractors in the area, fixed that up to become what we currently know as Steinbach Pavilion. So in June 20th, 2003, they had the inaugural concert for Street Fair in the Steinbach Pavilion. This is a picture of what we think the barn was. And this is just a newspaper article for the Steinbach Pavilion opening. Does mention in the article that at some point people envisioned that the city would turn it into a parking lot. But we're still here, we're still enjoying it, so it's persevered over the years. From a historical preservation perspective, I think I've heard many opinions from many different people. Some have deep value on Steinbach, some are ready to knock down Steinbach And I'm not here to say one way or another what's right or wrong. I'm just objectively saying I've heard many opinions. As far as the history of Steinbach and preserving it, it would go through some sort of assessment, determine its social and architectural historical value, and then from that we would determine what pieces have historical value and determine what pieces of it you would preserve and keep, or how that looks moving forward. Obviously there's some sort of public process in this and some additional meetings, so this isn't a one and done meeting, but we're just kind of getting you the flavor and up to speed on all the things that are making our head hurt in the last 2 weeks, and then you can have your head hurt with us. So this is what the usage looks like through the year. If you're just like, hey, what is it used for? I'm not down there all the time. Or how much is it rented out? So essentially we have the Old Town Skate, and that's October through April. That's plus or minus a month here or there, depending on season. The city does operate that now, and we do own large portions of what it takes to put the skate together. We own skates and the small skate rental and the boards and the sand and all these things. We do bring in the Zamboni. We do bring in the chiller. Those are rental things, and we do have an outside firm that we pay to operate all of this. But we do own a substantial amount of the Old Town Skate infrastructure now, and that is ours to operate. It has been known as Old Town Skate, and it has been known as Winter Skate. We do the street fair. Everyone knows street fair. There's 8 events there. The farmers market's down there every Saturday. There's roughly 25 weekends that exists, and then 15 to 45 events through the year, various weddings, birthday parties, memorial services. It's just a central hub to downtown and events, and I think we all know this. Just some pictures from the events: Winter Skate, street fair, farmers market. This is a picture of the basic damages that we saw down there. And if you just were to walk up on Steinbach and look up into the rafters those first few days, and you saw this, a lot of us said, hey, that's not great. Let's get on top of this. So we had a structural engineer looking at it the same day we learned that it was damaged. And we had a contractor mobilized by that Wednesday on the holiday to start stabilizing. So, as you're going through all these thought processes, you look at that and you say, hey, this looks like a pretty straightforward fix. We should be able to repair this and get back into business. As we got into the discussion with the structural engineer, and they had time to really evaluate the whole structure, what we use it for, what are the different loads and code requirements, as I said, that are required for it. It just kind of started to be a domino effect into what we needed to do to stabilize it, and it's quickly grown into just a much bigger scope of fix than what we thought. And generally, as we move forward, this is the look at a partial of the phase 1 fix or the summer fix. We're putting basically OSB or plyboard cut at every joint to really strengthen these trusses. That's $25,000 that we've spent to get it to this point for the stabilization. That should have been completed today. I wasn't out there today, but I think it's done. So for the next concert, we could go back to having concerts in it for the next concert. What this doesn't do is the winter season repairs. So if you imagine the truss up here, the winter season repairs actually will require us to build basically a second redundant truss system next to the existing truss. So essentially we're putting up a new roof within a roof. We start to quickly get away from that aesthetic and that historical character, and we're also starting to get to a point where there's 7,000 screws put into this thing for phase 1. And so at any point, if you want to do something different, you remove all that. This thing's becoming Swiss cheese to keep it standing. And so we're just trying to understand how far we go as far as can we even disassemble it and do something different with it in the future as we proceed with repairs. So these are the challenges and considerations and questions. I've talked a lot of different things, but the wind event really did some damage, and it damaged really all the joints to some extent. We've talked about the code safety. It's really a question, how far do we take this, given that we also parallel have a downtown vision plan that's gone through a significant public process. There's a lot of significant interest in doing something downtown. The LRC just last week initiated the process to take out a bond for $10 million. That'll be coming to City Council in the near future to discuss. If the council approves that, then the city will start going down a path where we bond $10 million, start some designs that start to re-envision the Steinbach area Front Street, maybe portions of Main Street. A lot to be determined there, but all these parallel things are starting to cause us to ask, how much should we really spend in different areas? What do these timelines look like? And really, where does council fit in with this, with the interest you've heard from the community? See if I missed anything here. We've already put a lot of things on it that aren't historical to turn it into something functional. We're continuing to put non-historical things on it. There are needs coming up in the future, $80,000 to redo the shade structure out there. So it is going to have needs even if we don't do anything with the downtown vision plan. And then again, I've just discussed how complex the repairs have gotten, and then how we disassemble that and then reassemble it in its original form if it's truly to be preserved in some original form. So I would say essentially this structure is at the end of its useful life, and we need to do a lot with it if it's truly going to be preserved in some pure way. This all forced us into renting the stage, right? And with that, I'll call it experimentation. But for us, what we initially thought it was going to be $20,000 or $30,000 to rent a stage. Eventually, the stage turned out to be $5,000. Availability's there. Put the stage up for a few concerts. Got a lot of feedback that people liked it. So that's just another data point that was interesting. This is just the crowd from the stage with the different positioning. See the Steinbach there. So essentially, just to finish out the summer, like I said, the summer repairs are done. We've rented the stage twice. If you want to stay with the rental stage situation, continue to experiment, whatever that looks like, to the community and the DBA, that's another $25,000 that we'd be talking about. If we didn't do the stage rental and we went back to Steinbach, we're at $35,000 right now. This is just for keep the summer moving along. We still have decision points to get to September or before September, when we want to start setting up winter skate in October. This vision plan, if you haven't been tracking, I just threw these slides in so you were aware. We just recently had an open house about a month ago. That was number 2. Starting to get a lot of good traction. We've done a lot of work with the businesses and the neighborhood and just the general public overall, LRC, to talk about what we want to do, what we could do, and what people like. This is just, I know this is a little blurry, but I had to copy and paste a lot of things to get ready for today. This is just kind of the scope of area of consideration for improvements for the downtown vision plan. I've talked about Steinbach's to the top. We've discussed about putting in like splash pad, trees, a lawn, things to activate that area. Front Street would become a curbless street to create more of a plaza area. Really connects the library and the Steinbach Pavilion area. It makes that feel like one big space that's comfortable and placemaking when we do events. And then other things around downtown, such as replanting trees in correct size planters so they actually grow tall and can mature and not die. And then looking at raised intersections or additional bump outs around Main Street. That's the gist of the vision plan. This all adds up quick. Here's some details around the Steinbach area. There's been a lot of discussion about, should Steinbach stay where it's at? Should it go completely? Should it move to one end to really optimize the space for concert viewing? So these are all things we're talking about. These are all just conceptual ideas. Obviously, not obviously, but if you don't know construction and you don't know how design goes, there will be more public process on the details of some of these designs if we decide to go deeper, but that takes additional funding. Right now, we're just funding to do some visioning. It's like a 5% design level, so it's more conceptual to say, yes, we do want to borrow some money and do something bigger, but when we decide to do that bigger, which we just started the process, there will be more opportunities to influence what this looks like and the character. This is just like if you're standing there at a relocated Steinbach type pavilion, what it could look like. So again, flexible lawns, splash pads, plantings, things like that. Again, there's a lot of steps and hoops to jump through, but if you're a dreamer, here's a moment to dream. This has all been phased conceptually. I'm sure you can all read that and you're up to par on what the numbers say up there, but essentially what I drew the circle around is what we call a phase 1. There's multiple phases to this plan. It was a long-term plan, guiding document per se, but the phase 1 is roughly an $8 million project just for infrastructure costs. This doesn't include design and management costs. So it's the phase 1 itself gets over $10 million, but if you really had to say what is phase 1, Phase 1 really focuses on the Steinbach area for roughly $2.5 million. Again, these are 5% cost estimate level, so not a high level of confidence. So on this sheet, if I say that the Steinbach Pavilion is $2.5 million, and then we say we're at a planning level where we have to put a 40% contingency onto it, then Steinbach is really $3.5 million at this point. As you design and eliminate your unknowns and get more of your knowns, your cost estimates will dial in. Doesn't necessarily mean they'll go down, but they will give more confidence level in what that true cost is and what the challenges are. So I think there's a lot of priorities out there, but probably the top 4 we've heard, I think consistently, is Steinbach is an area of priority. Front Street being curbless is an area of priority. Again, it connects that library and Steinbach area, really opens that festival street concept up where we throw the most events. Signage is very important to get people to parking and help people understand where our different nooks and crannies are to make sure it's utilized better. And then finally, streetscape improvements, which are the original things that started this whole vision. This all started out with, hey, we need to maintain our trees, our tree grates, and the irrigation systems downtown. So if you just start to look at those top 4 things and you throw a 40% contingency on it, and you know you have $10 million to spend, we're roughly getting to $10 million just with those top 4 things. Parallel to that, the city is also talking about South Street Underpass, which is on the outskirts of this area, but still an influencing factor both for the area as far as connections and for the LRC funding. It's a 7-phase project, the Highway 42 corridor, with South Street being phase 2. Phase 1 is going through 60% design to really identify where conflicts are in utilities, where the ultimate design impacts right away or other people's property, and start working through those challenges to eliminate hurdles so we can start to build out the project. The project itself allows us to make the traffic flow through this area better. I think we all know at certain times of day it's pretty painful to get through there. And then it also adds bicycle lanes, protected lanes, and multi-use trails. Underpasses at South Boulder Road and South Street allow all this to flow smoothly so that in the future, as you hit ultimate build out on traffic, not just for Louisville, but for the region, that the crossing signals where pedestrians are taking their crossings with this strong recreational east-west links and then a north-south link is not going to really bring that rush hour traffic to a standstill, so we can move a lot of traffic and a lot of people at the same time. So South Street being part of that phase 2 is currently on our agenda to deliver in the next few years, depending on if the funding priorities of LRC or the funding priorities of the city advance it to that stage. To date, we have received $3 million from Dr. Cog in grant money to build South Street, and then just within the last month, Lafayette had money allocated from CDOT to the Highway 42 corridor that they're not going to be able to prioritize and make improvements on. So they offered to, through conversation with us, reallocate their money to Louisville. So at this point, we've applied for and negotiated $5 million out of the $10 million of other people's money. And so we still have $5 million to make up ourselves, depending on where that comes from. This is a conversation really between the LRC and the city council. And I think that'll happen over the next few months as the bonding issue comes into play. Why does South Street and Steinbach and the downtown vision plan all matter? Well, because when all these things start to go to construction, there's a lot of things in play as far as logistics to not impact downtown, to work around events in downtown, to also try to find common ground in how we manage projects. But more importantly, each of these is a $10 million vision. So we also want to try and start to build a project that we can market to the contractor community to get a good bidding climate so that we can save money through the bidding effort. So we really want to start to think about how we can align synergies in our projects that are both in the area to get some synergies to save money through the bidding effort, and then hopefully work through smoother logistics for construction that's happening all around the area. We're going to have to work back and forth through a lot of things, businesses, events, all these things. If you're around in 2014 and 15, we did a significant drainage project in downtown to bring that out of the floodplain. That would be a similar scope and size feel as what this will be to downtown when we try to implement this. So through that, again, there's going to be stage needs that may or may not work with the existing location of Steinbach. If all this falls into play perfectly, the funding and the design and the public process, we will design very hard for the next year. And then starting in fall of next year, fall of 2025, we'll start going into construction phasing. We'll try to expedite that as much as possible, but it's also dependent on what money the city council or LRC can prioritize and expedite our efforts and our contracts. But this will last into 2027, most likely, to finalize out all these projects. So we're really about to take on a big thing. And Steinbach in itself is a huge discussion. It's a sentimental discussion, but it's also like a big pivot point for a lot of big plans. And so you're up to speed with us, and we're back to our three options, and we're talking about whether we just want a full fix, buy time until we get further down the road for both summer and winter, or if we just want to say, hey, we're in a good place for summer, but now go to work on what it looks like to maybe preserve Steinbach or save the pieces that matter of it, but get it ready for the upcoming construction that is likely to take place. And then as far as option 3, we've heard different people say it'd be great to have a portable stage, whether it be people in the community, different members of council at times, our own staff. But also I think what we've learned also through renting, that's the more affordable way to go. And it's the way to really work within the limits of the staff we have. So open up to questions there, but that's the gist.
Oh, I thought you wanted to. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I have a question. So if we do the fix, or we have done the fix for the summer? Is that
Correct.
So we could use the stage there for the rest of the summer for street fairs, is that right?
Yep, that's what we've been repairing towards. We still have to
Okay.
get some building safety permits issued and a CO, but yes.
And then, but that's not going to be sufficient to have it operating as the ice skating rink over the winter?
Correct. So we would shut the area back down if we don't do additional repairs, probably October 1st.
So we couldn't have the ice skating rink, or we just,
We would really need to work around the pavilion to squeeze all the ice skating activities in without being under the pavilion, or we might need to relocate it just outside that area. I mean, this is a part that's a big if.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Oh, what would the cost increase be to just get it stabilized enough to continue with the ice skating rink over the winter?
Right now, it's probably an additional 25 to 35,000 to build that second truss structure.
Okay.
We're
thank
still
you.
awaiting the final engineering details on that.
All right, thank you.
And any other questions? Yeah, Councilmember Hefner?
No, I just want to confirm, Kurt, can we confirm the numbers on option 2, because I was doing the math and it seems like I'm not coming up with 95 if I do it. So if you flash that slide up, it was like,
Yeah, let's see, I got 10, 35,
so
50, 60.
I'm showing 105.
The 10K is built into the 35K. So I'm assuming we'll have 25K. If there's, let's just, without offending anyone, I'm just going to use the word demo. But if there's a demo activity where we are going to tear it down, but we save parts and pieces of it to store, I was envisioning that would be 25,000 or less, and then the 10K for the preservation assessment. That would happen in advance of demo, but we'd figure out what matters there. So generally demolition's not super expensive. It's possible it could be a little more, but that's what those numbers anticipate.
Okay. Thanks.
Assuming we don't do the winter repairs, can you just give us a sense of what it looks like over the winter? Like, how do you close it off, assuming you don't demo it?
Yeah, I mean, I really feel the reality is we have to get some level of demo
Okay.
to preserve it and get it out of the way, but preserved, and then allow other activities to happen until we do the downtown vision plan improvements. Essentially, we have a year and a half to get through, right? If we're not till fall of 2025, that's a long time that we have to make this area presentable.
Yeah. And are you making a recommendation to us as between the three options? Do you have a preference?
I'm not, because I'm trying to represent, I've been running in my world, but we have historical preservation, we have historical museum, we have special events. I think people, if I had to guess citywide, we haven't had a lot of time to collaborate, but people would recommend option 2. That we should not put continued monies into Steinbach. We should look at what parts of it need to be preserved, and we should start to set ourselves up to be more creative with our events, have flexibility with our events, and focus on what the downtown vision plan should provide.
Thanks.
Other questions? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just curious. Doesn't seem to be an option of demolition, and then you have the space, right? So if you were to demolish it tomorrow, and then you could put a tent there as a covering, as an alternate, like so. Again, the
Mayor
exact same.
Mayor
idea
Pro
of
Tem, can I
covering.
interrupt you for a second? About every third word. Is there a way to get?
Yeah, so I turned my video off. I don't know. Is that any better?
Maybe.
Maybe. There doesn't seem to be an option on the table for demolition and then pivot. So for the winter skate, if the Steinbach didn't exist, we could put tents like we have right now as the space that people can be under next to the ice skating rink, correct?
Mayor Pro Tem, again, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. The very first part of that, what you said, came through loud and clear, and then it just faded away to whisper and then nothing.
Well, fun. I'm going to do my best to participate, but
Now it's great.
I
No,
may
now
not
it's
be able
great.
to. Well, so I can't tell what you're hearing, but if the Steinbach actually blew over instead of just getting horribly destroyed, if it was gone, the winter skate plan would allow for us to use that space without having to repair that structure.
Yes, if it had been blown over and then we had to clean up the blowover, we would be able to. We feel option 2 puts us on a sprint to get Steinbach out of the way in whatever way is the right way, so the winter skating can proceed. That's what we're envisioning, and that's why we're coming to you so quickly. Does that kind of match up with what you might have said? Maybe go to thumbs up or thumbs down on video.
Mayor Pro Tem, can you hear us? One other suggestion, Mayor Pro Tem, if you.
Sorry, Mayor. I just moved to a potentially better location, closer to the Wi-Fi that might work. So I'll try again. I'll listen in for a sec.
Did you hear what the director said, sort of to summarize the second option in a way that he thought conformed with what you were suggesting? Maybe I can ask him to do that again.
Sure. I think what we.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to go, and then you can stop me. I think what we heard is if the Steinbach had damaged so tragically that it had blown down, then maybe what would we do to make winter forward? We certainly have removed what was left of Steinbach out of the way, and we would have made sure that summer season concert series moved forward, and that also that area would be opened up for winter skate, and we would probably think about how to make winter skate or the remaining area for summer concert season
Is another way of saying that if, if what you're saying happened, the concrete pad would stay, everything else would get moved off somewhere else, either to be disposed of or preserved in some way?
Testing?
Okay.
I'm-
Mayor Pro Tem, what's the last thing you heard me say? I'm not sure when my mic went out.
Yeah. So no, you're okay. I'm back. What I understand and is definitely confusing with, and I really apologize for the technology issue and doing my best to try to be able to communicate. My understanding is there's a possibility that we could clear out that space and use it alternatively, but that isn't one of the three options. Is there an option that allows for that?
I believe clearing out the space would be built into option 2. Option 2, when we say preservation of parts of Steinbach, I think if the council said, hey, we want to do option 2, don't put any additional funding into repairs, complete historical assessment if that's desired, and then preserve whatever parts have historical interest. Maybe the assessment says the whole thing's amazing, or maybe it says, hey, just take the sign off the front and then move along. I'm not that expert for you, but we would move through that process quickly to try to remove the structure or the pieces that matter to a safe storage location and the other pieces to a landfill that don't matter, and clear the area out so it's can be activated by Winterscape.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarity. I was confused between options 1 and 2. I thought option 1 was like making it work for the summer, and option 2 was making it even better repairs so it would work for the winter. I didn't see option 2 as potentially, disassembling or demolishing the structure. So that's good. That's good clarification. Thank you.
Okay, and then back to the mayor's question, we would leave the pad, and it's possible that we leave the posts, and then we do some sort of shade sail thing, or I don't know. We don't know. Like this is the part where we need a little guidance, and then we'll figure a lot more out.
I understand. Councilmember Kern.
Thank you. So, thank you for that, and getting this together so quickly for us, given the tragic issue with our beloved Steinbach. So, if we were to take option 1 at $70,000, you've already done some of the repairs. If we were to go ahead, repair it so that it will last through the winter season and could be used again next summer. So we retain, the structure the way that it is, and then spent $10,000 to have you assess the historical value. Could that $10,000 be part of the downtown vision plan, because they were going to do an assessment of the Steinbach to determine what they would keep or not keep for that anyway?
Yeah, so you're allowed to mix and match options here, so you can't cross lines. It's okay. We're out of transportation. It's cool. So we could do the historical assessment. I want to be careful when we say what we'll do when, because I need a lot of things to run parallel to hit construction, shovel in the ground next fall. So we would probably start doing the historical assessment now. Now you could distribute money or allocate it or put it under what account you want and call it downtown vision plan. But we would start that now, because I really got to understand what this means to us as we go through design.
So we could spend $35,000 to winterize it, or we could don't winterize it and spend $25,000 for the rest of the year in a stage if we don't. Actually, no, that's not true. It's $35,000 just to get it ready for the rest of the year. So that would take us through the winter. We wouldn't need any additional stages or anything, right? For $35,000 more than what we've already spent.
That is true.
So it will only cost an additional $35,000, and if we don't do it, it's 25,000 just to add the stage for the rest of the summer, or we don't need it then?
Yes.
Okay, so we do.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tim?
I'm struggling with the math, Kurt, a little bit, because option one is 70,000, option two is 95,000. The only delta I can see is the 25,000 for stage rental in option two. Am I missing something?
The third, so the 25,000, I see what you're,
So Mike,
let's,
yeah,
yeah,
do you want to rework the, like,
I do,
I think the math's off.
could be.
Because I'm saying, if it's 70,000 for option one without the stages and 95,000, they're both 70,000 unless I'm missing something. Because my feeling is if we can do the full repair for 70 and maybe add the stages as an add-on because they were so well received, I would lean towards that. But there must be some, I think there's some delta.
No, the math is correct. So the first, I just added them both up. So 10 and 25 in the first column of option one is 35, plus 35 is 70.
Right.
In option two, 10 and 25 is 35, plus 25 is 60, plus 35 is 95. It's the stage is the addition.
Right.
Yeah, so if you don't do this, right.
So it seems to me, you're saying like, hey, it's preservation, but we can do the full repair for 70,000 in option one. Why would we ever do option two?
I
So I'd like to know
yeah,
the
it's-
difference between those two, like what is in your mind?
well, I guess maybe let's get a little more specific. I think we really need to understand to what extent we are preserving Steinbach Pavilion. Are we at a minimum that we're doing a historical assessment? If we are, then we should just do that now and get that out of the way and see how much we preserve. Because if we don't want to put additional repair funds into it, and you would like it to not be a hurdle for winter skate, then I need to start that process of making it go away now. So it's this, I think the real difference is the outcome you want.
Can winter skate happen under option one, or is that no, because you're repairing it and it's delayed?
It can happen under option one.
Okay. I don't see why option one, it's the same spent money, but yeah, but it gets us a little, yeah.
Discussion in a minute. Do you have a question? Yeah.
One more question. On the historic preservation aspect of it, so it is at least 50 years old, so it would qualify for historic preservation funds, is that correct? If we choose to landmark it?
I'm gonna rely on Mr. Zaccaro to get into the details here.
Right, so yeah, so it, by all accounts, it does appear to exceed 50 years old, so it could be eligible from an age standpoint for landmarking. A historic structure assessment, you have to find the commission, Historic Preservation Commission would have to find probable cause that it could be landmarked. Sometimes we do assessments and the outcome isn't preserving the structure. It can also be, are there parts of the structure or artifacts in the structure worth saving? So there's value even if you don't end up saving the structure to do an assessment. Historic Preservation Fund could fund that if the commission finds probable cause. So yes, and if it is landmarked, that's a whole nother issue where then it would become a central part of the vision plan. And you'd be trying to preserve it in its historic state.
Right. Thank you.
There's a lot of nuances here.
Any other questions? Yep. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you. So for option two, the costs that we're looking at here basically plan out the costs through the end of 2024, but do not take into account any costs we would incur for having events in 2025 and potentially beyond if the vision plan isn't enacted in the timeline that we anticipate, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
The public comment, just again, to reiterate, you have 3 minutes, 6 if you're able to point to somebody who is in the room now, who's willing to cede their time to you, or online, who's willing to cede their time to you. You can say your piece in 3 minutes, please. No clapping, no hooting, no hollering, whatever, to try to keep order and make sure that we encourage everybody to participate. So, do you have any public comment?
I have a card from Sherry Summer.
Sherry Summer, 910 South Palisade Court. Oh, you didn't need to know that. I really liked your last comment, Councilmember Hamilton, because these scenarios are a little bit more short-term, with the exception of buying a stage. I really do think it was a little bit fortuitous that Steinbach had these issues now, because that rental stage is so much better for the music. And I went into the downtown vision plan thinking, oh, you know, who needs all that new stuff? But really before, like, it was just so noisy, and I couldn't really hear the music, and I would feel sick when I went down there, honestly. So I do think, like, long term, it would be really good to have a more professional stage. And I think maybe it's better to rent it, because then you don't have to store it, you don't have to take care of it. People just deliver it to you, and then you're done with it. I'm really glad they're doing the historic assessment. I mean, Steinbach does serve a lot of purposes. It's good for market concerts. It's a nice place for children to play. There's a little shade, you can gather. I guess we probably don't want to get into it like a sunk cost scenario if it isn't really worth saving, though. Maybe it'd be better to make a replica or something that serves the same function as Steinbach. And I know there's a lot of sentiment around this. It's not just a money decision, but really, if it's too dilapidated, I'm glad we have scenarios for taking out some of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Next
we have
is,
2 online.
Sorry, next is Lawrence Anderson,
Ah,
to be followed by Mark Oberholzer.
okay.
I'm Lawrence Anderson. I'm the general manager of the street fair, and also kind of speaking on behalf of the DBA. And I don't really have prepared comments other than to say it was a really interesting to see what happened when we set up this temporary stage, and certainly we were really fortunate to be able to do it, and I appreciate the support from the city to make that happen. It certainly worked great, and as a concert viewing experience for the audience, I think, you know, it showed us the possibilities of what it could be in the future with a fully realized new vision plan. In terms of the street fair's operations for the rest of the summer, I think that it's, you know, we support all of these options, obviously, but I think that we would probably be better off to be back in the pavilion. There's certainly great things about having that temporary stage up there, but there's also some really great things about the pavilion. And I think in a perfect world, if we had the temporary stage exactly where the pavilion is, then we could make, you know, it exactly right. Because we would have, you know, the proximity of the beer garden to the stage, which I think is important for sales and also for our volunteer experience and that kind of thing. And then the other factor that the DBA is certainly interested in is the Old Town Skate. They, you know, wanted to be able to continue this winter, and I think, you know, if in reality we could get the Steinbach Pavilion removed in some sort of acceptable temporary shelter that would allow winter skate to continue, then that would be great. Otherwise, it makes sense to do option 1, get it up so we can continue on and work out how we're going to get the pavilion removed and continue on with the vision plan, which will take likely longer than all of us would like it to. I hope. Is that cool? Thanks.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Next is Mark Oberholzer, to be followed by Mike Kransdorf.
All right, thank you. First, I wanted to say thank you to everybody with the city for jumping on this. I thought the response was exemplary. I had some very well thought out, concise comments about all of this, and then I got confused as I listened to all of the options. So I'm going to do my best. The one thing I don't quite understand is why the rental of the stage for the remaining weeks is only part of option 2, or why it's part of an option at all. It seems like that could be an independent decision, unless it has to do with the winterizing construction, and would that prevent the the pavilion to be able to be used for the rest of the summer? I didn't quite follow that. I think that winter skate is an important point. We tried, it was a new arrangement for winter skate this year. I think it struggled, and I think to not have a good pavilion or some sort of a shelter option for winter skate would just make it struggle even more. And so I would like to see winter skate have a good option for that, if that's to make sure that's one of the options. And as far as, again, a separate issue of buying a stage, I think in the long run that makes a lot of sense to me. I love just the possibilities of being able to use it for the street fair, for the Thursday night summer concerts, for concerts on Main Street, and we could even come up with all kinds of new things. You've got the stage you can move around. And I don't know about renting versus buying, I guess, but if we have it, we'll use it. If we're renting it, we may not make as much use of it. So, in a perfect world, I think the purchase would be a fine option. That's what I've been able to rescue from my notes. But until I have a further understanding of all the options, it's hard for me to form an opinion. But thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Next is Mike Kransdorf.
Hi, Mike Kransdorf. I think I'm just as flummoxed as everyone and don't really have a recommendation other than to go along with Kurt's forced experimentation to put the stage up. I think you should do at least one with the rental stage on the north end facing south, just to see what that turns up, because I think that was perhaps the preferred option for the downtown vision plan. So it'd be nice to see what that turned up. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Other?
Next is Rick Cron. Oh, nope, took his hand down.
Are there any other public comments? Okay.
So
now Rick has raised his hand.
Hello, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Oh, thank you very much. This is Rick Crown, President of the Downtown Business Association and long-term resident since 1987 of Ward 3. First, I want to echo both Lawrence and Caleb's, and I think Mike might have mentioned it too, the excellent job the city staff did on getting on this almost immediately, and getting things set up instantly was absolutely phenomenal. Hard to beat it. What I'd like to know, though, or like to have, is similar rapid action by City Council, particularly tonight, to pick probably any of the three options. I quickly pulled the DBA board today. I've got board members on all three of these saying they're the best idea ever. So I think this is more or less in your lap, and I don't think you can make a major mistake here, no matter which one of the three you pick. I do think, though, that whatever option you do choose has got to take winter skate into account, or Old Town skate. And it seems like the surest option to make sure that we will have winter skate this season would probably be to do the option 2 and do the improvements to Steinbach that'll let that happen, even though, yes, that may be a sunk cost. But the loss of winter skate is huge for the retail sector, particularly in downtown. And I think the surest way of making sure that happens is to go ahead with option 2. However, like I said, I don't think you can make a mistake. I think the DBA will support no matter which of the three you choose. And if you mix and match, that's fine too. I think with the new pavilion possibly going in and ready to go in 2027, a option for improving the pavilion for winter probably is looking maybe at 2 winters too, which sounds like is well within the capabilities of the relatively modest amount of money you're talking about here. Thank you very much. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Rick. All right, then let's take it back. Can you put up the 3 options for us to take a look at? Council comments and further questions. Yes, Councilmember Hefner.
Yeah, I have a few comments and really appreciate the thorough presentation and the thoughtful options, which I think I now understand. And I think what Rick was just talking to us about was option 1, not option 2, which was fixing the existing Steinbach well enough that it's usable for winter skate, which to me makes a lot of sense. I'm looking at this from a sort of marginal cost perspective, right? There's some money we've already spent, and we're not getting that back. And I see it as option 1 is an additional $35K. Option 2 is more like $65K, maybe $75 if we do the historic study. But then under option 2, we also have to consider what are the add-on improvements we'll have to make to accommodate winter skate, whether that's improving the concrete pad or putting up a temporary structure, whatever the case may be. I would assume there's some additional expense there. And then option 3, of course, is quite expensive, and doesn't appeal to me right now, so I'm sort of thinking about options 1 and 2. And as between those two, status quo, I think, works in terms of making sure we have something that works for winter skate. Everyone's familiar with it as it exists now. The one thing I would propose is maybe we tack on some amount of additional budget to do the stage rental 2-3 more times and try on stage rental maybe in the north side location or maybe where we had it, and give folks a taste for what that's like, which I think could inform the vision plan. It could inform sort of our future planning and give everyone a reference point on what the options might be, while also sort of maintaining the option for the status quo. So I think that's where I'm at right now. I think that gives us the most optionality in terms of addressing vision plan and doing your construction staging and so on and so forth. I'd be interested, Kurt, in your feedback on that, but that's what makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think these are just starting points. So the mixing and matching we're getting into right now is actually really good to hear from our standpoint. We just had to come up with something to start you off. We did feel additional stage rentals provided more time to try things out, whether it's north, south, east, west, or a Main Street concert. I don't know. But we do know we're kind of guessing where the best place is for a permanent improved pavilion. So the continued experiment, I think, informs that really well. So that's why we had the stage rentals in. Whether you permanently fix it or I'm just going to simplify this. We either permanently fix it and it's there till we get into bigger improvements, or we have to make it go away in 3 months and have an interim solution for skate. I think to hear that having a pavilion structure for skate is important versus something open air. So I think that would make you lean towards option 1, let's just call it full repairs. So I think if I'm summing up all the feedback to this point, it's make the full repairs, get back to normal business, do an historical assessment to see what matters on the pavilion, and also you would like to approve up to the 5 remaining stage rentals for $25K and maybe only do 2. But if you start getting into a flow and you want to do all 5, the city manager has that flexibility without coming back to you. And you also have the flexibility that after 2 more rentals, you're like, I think we're good. Let's just go back to Steinbach. We're not going to spend out the full $25K, call it an allowance. So that's what I think I'm hearing.
You said it far better than I did.
Okay.
Councilmember Bierman.
So Kurt, if we do one, will it be ready for the next street fair concert? Or will we have to do a rental?
That
at least
I
minimum
don't
of 1
know.
or 2 rentals?
I mean, we are trying to.
Right.
It's about 2 weeks away. I still don't have the engineering recommendation. We think, but it's on nothing can go wrong critical path.
Yeah.
So we still might need a stage rental or two.
Yeah. So the feedback that I've heard from residents was that they loved the stage. It felt like a concert. The acoustics, the sound was much, much better. So, I'm inclined to agree with my fellow council member, whether it's 2, 3, 5 more, maybe you look, I know Molly Hatchett's a big name. I just think the energy was so much better. I was there 2 weeks ago. It was awesome, right? So I know this is sort of serendipitous, but I too agree. I think, definitely want to do winter skate. If that falls under option 1, ideally, I would support that with some additional rentals for the summer to try things out, right? North side, I don't know if east-west is really practical, but again, the feedback was very, very positive for the stage, so.
Okay.
I have just a question. Are we absolutely certain that council would be paying for the stage rental?
Is that your assumption? Back to the city council.
I mean, is that your assumption?
Our assumption is the city's handling the triage costs.
Okay, I got it. Anybody else? Yep, Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to staff for communicating so clearly and getting on top of this. Thank you to Lawrence back there behind Kurt, I can't see you, for being such a great partner to work with in all of this. When I'm looking at the 3 options, it's clear that Steinbach is a hub for events in Louisville. It's also really important to our downtown businesses that we have a space that's inviting and doesn't detract from attracting individuals to those events to then spend money downtown, hopefully. Looking at those options that we have here, thinking of those things, to me, option 1 makes the most sense. In an ideal world, the vision plan would be beginning sooner rather than later, but we could say it's a year and a half, and who knows what happens, and it could be pushed out another year, right? So it's another reason why I think option 1 would be a great option. I'm on board with the additional stage rentals. The only thing I would ask is, can we, in addition to assessing the feel and the mood, can we do some noise level readings or actually collect data as well of how this impacts our residents who live in close proximity to the stage? So if we're truly going to use it to beta test in a way and collect information for the vision plan, I would love to see that. I know I'm getting in the weeds on that, but I had to say that. And then also the historical preservation part, it just makes sense to start. We're going to do that eventually at some point. It makes sense just to start it now. So when we are ready to press the go button, we already have that plan in place. So I'm on board with that as well.
Other council members? Yes, Councilmember Fahey.
I'll just reiterate just about everything that Barbara just said. I think option 1 is the way to go because it does provide for the use that we've used it for in the past for at least 1 more year. And I like the idea of the mobile stages because if we do locate them in different places and different angles and things, we'll get a sense where that permanent stage should be in the downtown vision plan. If there is a stage, where should it be and where should it be pointed? And I really think we should do the historic assessment because we could get some money to help do this. So those are my comments.
Councilmember Kern.
Thank you. Interesting. We're all going to be in agreement. As Councilmember Huffner was talking, I was like, that's good. I don't even have to repeat anything to the public. I'll just say ditto. Save us a lot of time. But ask one item add-in because I can't resist. So if we're gonna like test for sound, what I'd love to do, Lawrence, is test for sales. Let's see if what we're doing, the changes that we're making, has a financial benefit to the street fair, to the city, Vanessa, for sales tax as well. Does the bigger stage, does it really bring in a bigger audience? Does it depend on where it's located? If it's in the middle of the beer fest, if you will, are sales better? Some of the pictures I saw with the new stage set up at the far south end, there were an awful lot of people in the picture who did not have a thimble in their hand. I'm sorry, a tin cup in their hand. And so I would love to see everyone in that picture, having purchased from the beer hall. So that was the only assessment I'd like to see, is if we can figure out where the money is. $5,000 to rent the stage could produce a lot of enjoyment. I'd like to see that the money is actually there to cover that. That is coming in for everybody's perspective. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks. Yeah, as far as historic assessment, I guess I'm a little perplexed by a $10,000 assessment on a structure in which basically anyone can see every piece of it as they walk by. You don't have to assess the foundation. You don't have to assess the structural integrity. It's a pole barn in plain view. So I don't understand how we could possibly spend $10,000 assessing that building. It is a pole barn that is dilapidated and falling down and has, lattice that is broken. It is an eyesore, and I cannot imagine spending $10,000 to assess that building. So I am a huge fan of historic preservation, as you all know, both my home and sitting on that board. And this is an interesting use of that. The only way we get funds to preserve the building is if we landmark it, and then we keep a pole barn in the center of our space that is a detriment to the events that we're trying to hold, right? So it is not a good concert venue. It is not a good place to perform. I've held many events there. It is to perform on that stage to more than 40 people, and it's an event of multiple thousands of people, 2,000 to 3,000 people at that event. So I think it's a detriment to the farmers market. It's not utilized during the farmers market, and it use what we have for the street fair, but it is not a good quality stage and performance area for that event. So it's a detriment, and I think that our vision plan will certainly see that structure moved, changed, reinvented, but certainly not, we wouldn't continue with that structure if we were re-envisioning that area, because it's not very functional. And so to spend money preserving it when the vision plan would certainly not preserve it seems like a waste of money for all of us. So sentimentally, I love the street fair. I love the farmers market. I love coming down for winter skate. I use that maybe more than anyone else sitting on the dais. I love that area. It doesn't mean I love the pole barn, right? The pole barn is a detriment to every one of those events. And so I don't see any reason why we would spend $1 preserving that structure. You could rebuild that structure in a week for $20,000. It's just a wood frame. You see the framing that happens. It's just framing. There are no walls. It's just framing. So I think I realize I'm in the minority here, and that's fine. I'm really excited about the street fairs we've had the last couple weeks. I'm really excited about the potential of that area for our community as a gathering area. I'm really excited about it remaining as the Steinbach Plaza, the Steinbach Pavilion, the Steinbach whatever. I'm not trying to get rid of that social history. I want it to continue and be amazing. I'm really excited. And if the wind had blown it over entirely, we would be just moving on and figuring out the best way to do it. And if the wind event hadn't happened, we would just leave it, and it'd be great. We'd leave it for the next year or two while we're working on it. I have no interest in demolishing it just to demolish it. That is not, don't confuse that. I don't want to get rid of it to get rid of it. I want to get rid of it for something better. But to spend a bunch of money to keep it standing, I think is is a waste of money. I think we would do a great job this winter if it weren't there, and we'd do a great job this summer with our events if it weren't there. So that's where I stand on the pole barn.
One question for you, Mayor Pro Tem. Which option are you in favor of?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess as I understand it, option 2, again, I don't understand how it would rise to that amount of money. As Councilmember Bierman was kind of pointing out, like a full restoration of it is $70K, and tearing it down is $70K. Like I don't understand how those two amounts are the same. So like I would vote for, option allow this building to reach the end of its useful life and pivot, as we did so beautifully, and again, compliments to staff and to DBA and to everyone who did such a great job. Pivot for the summer event, pivot for the winter event, pivot for the farmers market, and move forward on our vision plan and make the space better. But not spend $30,000, $20,000, $50,000, $5,000 keeping those rafters up. I guess that's maybe option 2.
Staying with that for just a second, Director, that option sounds a little different than any of the other options. It sounds like, I don't know what demolition, again, I'm just kind of trying to make sure I understand the Mayor Pro Tem's suggestion, which is, it sounds like demolition plus, the stage rental for now, unless I've got it wrong. And that sounds like a different number than either 1 or 2.
So demo is a big word. If I can simply just knock it over and haul to the landfill, that's not a lot of money spent. But demo or preservation could also mean I have to pick it apart a piece of lumber at a time.
Right.
And this is the good pile, this is the bad pile. Those things add up. So I just try to put a general number of, say, $25K if I have to pick it apart.
Okay.
If everyone here, if we had started this conversation and everyone said, this is a pole barn, knock it down, then it's probably $5,000 or less, I'm guessing. But if the overall input is that this is something worth to be assessed and preserved pieces of, then I'm at that higher number. So we had like a whole 48 hours to prep all this for you guys. So
yeah,
we're getting smarter as we go right now.
Yeah. Let me ask Director Zaccaro, there's a sense in which it's an open question about whether a historical assessment is necessary. If you do, let's assume that for a second, the Mayor Pro Tem, after our discussion, if that view prevailed, there is that kind of what I usually call the nuclear option on Historical Preservation Commission, which is to stop that pending, other action. I don't know whether the Historical Commission has that power over the city itself, but it certainly has, in the recent past, stopped demolition. So tell me.
Yeah, so the demolition requirement is any structure that was built in 1955 or earlier. This was built in 1957, so the Historic Preservation Commission couldn't put a demolition stay on it. It's not quite old enough. The assessment, and I think the assessment number comes from a commercial, what's the highest amount that a commercial structure can get, which is $9,000. That's the highest grant, but it doesn't mean it costs $9,000. It's just a commercial structure is up to $9,000. Certainly it's a simple structure. If the HPC were to grant a probable cause and we did a historic structure assessment, we'd probably find a contractor and see what it would cost. Hopefully it would cost less than the $9,000, which is the max for a commercial structure. A historic structure assessment doesn't have to lead to a landmarking. It can also identify historic, it would assess a lot of things. It would assess how to restore and maintain it, but it would also, so that we knew what that option was and maybe how to plan for that if there was a change of heart compared to the direction this seems to be going. But it could also say there's parts of the structure that are original, like what parts are original, what parts were added in 2003. It could make recommendations for preserving parts of it that could be used in a new stage, for example. Now, that it gets complicated, and I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but you don't want to have fake history either. So we want to be sensitive to that, but it could lead to some information about materials that we could reuse in the new, the new vision of Steinbach Plaza and Front Street Plaza.
That's very helpful, to me anyway. I think some sort of historical assessment is probably worthwhile. I wouldn't say that that's something that should be done with an expectation that the LRC would be willing to pay any portion of it. I think that's way premature because we don't have any, we're not finalized on the vision plan. So I think that's council, if it's anybody. And I don't know whether Director Zakar, do you have a sense of that?
About LRC? I don't really, but I think, I did think of another comment, the Mayor Pro Tem Dickinson, about do you even need it? I think it's possible too, we could talk internally and maybe talk to HPC about, there might be some obvious materials that we could save for the planning process, and an assessment may not be necessary. And when I say that's a formal historic structure assessment where you're hiring a structural engineer and an architect to put the whole history together. So I think that's something we maybe don't even have to decide tonight, and we can just continue to think about and explore options and opportunities.
That would seem a lot better. It's not a formal process, but perhaps an informal process. I mean, if there's no formal process that's compelled, I don't know that we want to create some formal process because, frankly, if we do it there, I worry that we're going to be doing it for all kinds of things that don't otherwise require assessments, and it's going to be expensive, and the demand for that, who knows what the demand for that could be. So I think given that, I'm probably more inclined to the first option, which I think seems to be the general consensus. I want to kind of give some, I know Mayor Pro Tem does disagree with that point of view, and I'd like to hear some other feedback if there is some other feedback about, going with option one plus maybe some kind of informal assessment. And one last thing about the informal assessment. I think there are enough people in the city who care about parts of the pavilion, and I think about the sign, for example, and maybe there's a few other small things that I'd hate to gloss over those kinds of concerns. I think they're pretty easy to manage in all of it. But anyway, other comments? Councilmember Hafner, did you have?
I'm happy with informal assessment. Otherwise, I think I'm in the same place.
Okay. Councilmember Bierman?
I was just, I'm not married to the Steinbach Pavilion, right? I see preservation, not demo, but whatever can keep the winter skate going, keep the sign. Like, I don't think we're going to find things that are going to be too salvageable personally. I like the idea of additional stage rentals, whether it's up to 5 or whatever. I really think that experience has been positive. We can learn some more. So I waver between, I was looking at the money, right? I'm thinking 70 is the cheapest option. Even with stage rentals, you're equal, if not maybe a little less if you do, than option 2. So, I'm still leaning towards option 1, but it's not like I want to do everything in our power to keep that, because I think the vision plan calls for something new and exciting. So maybe I'm on the fence.
Very good. And I forgot to add to that sort of general consensus, the idea of doing, well, it is in the option 1 to do the stage rentals. I think that's part of it. Is it not?
It's not in there.
Stage rental actuals.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not.
that's in the future, sorry. Yeah. I would add that because I think people have talked about that. Yes, Councilmember Hamilton.
I'm fine taking historical assessment off the table right now if there's an informal way to look at bits and bobs that could be utilized for future purposes. So I'm agreeable to option 1 with additional stage rentals to assess the feasibility of the downtown vision plan implementation.
Thanks. Others? Councilmember Fahey.
I'll go along with what's been said. I like option 1 with some kind of at least looking at the historic significance of certain things, particularly the sign. I mean, we call it Steinbau Pavilion because of the Steinbau name. And I think that's important and significant in the history of Louisville. And I do like the idea of the rental stages and putting them in different places in order to see what area works best.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have anything to add?
No, I hear where the room is at. I think I would say I like the idea of testing the stage in the south facing, so the putting in the north end and facing it south, because I do think you're not gonna be able to put it where you want to actually put it, because the tents are in the way, and it would make no sense to actually put it off the street where you would eventually have it, but to put it on the north end facing south on Front Street would be, just another interesting test. It's closer to the beer tent, but again, you would reinvent the entire space, and the beer tents, who knows where it'd be. So, but yeah, I think that would be valuable to do 1 or 2 times. I don't know that you have to go 5 times. I think again the concert goers and the performers for the rental stage, which just goes to show you that the stop off stage is not the preferred way to watch a concert. So I'm fine doing all 5 or just the next 2. And I definitely hear that the group is wanting to continue to look at preserving, for at least temporarily preserving, that structure. And it sounds like maybe we're in consensus to assess it informally rather than spending thousands of dollars. But even to Rob's point, that's a cap, right? So you might spend $2,000 on a professional to come in and assess it. But I think having gone through that myself, you learn a lot when you assess like a home or a building, a commercial building, of like digging into it and seeing like what's inside the walls and what's the wiring like and what's the foundation like. There's so much to discover, and you can just see it all. So I don't think we need that level of professional, but I would hope we could hire someone who would agree and say, yeah, I looked at it for an hour and here's your information. It's pulled in rafters. You're welcome. So I think that's the right way to go, to save us some money. And apparently, I think, so I hear where.
Okay, thank you, Pro Tem. I'm going to make a motion now if I'm going to.
Can I ask one question?
You may.
This has been clear as mud for all of us, clearly. Within the allowances of the $35K to repair and then, use it. The primary factor right now is winter skate, I think. I think we've solved the summer concert season, and if anything, there's more excitement around the summer concert season. I'd like to apply the same creativity, or at least have a week or two, to the winter skate. And if for similar amounts of money, we can come up with a better solution for winter skate than putting more sunk costs in a Steinbach, I don't know what that looks like, but I'd like to ask for the freedom to explore if we can come up with a better option for winter skate in lieu of fixing, then we would run that through you, through the city manager. And if we can't, then we'll just go with the fix. Either way, we're renting stages for the summer. But I think a lot of credit goes to a lot of staff for being creative. And I wouldn't want to cut that creativity off because you feel like you have to pick rigid options tonight. So I don't know if that influences your motion.
Thank you. Let's ask council members what they think about that.
Fine with me.
Ditto.
I guess the one thing I would add is just we should all be clear that what we're sort of agreeing on is the status quo, and the creative option would be a change that we would approve, right?
Well, either that or we're postponing the decision on this. I mean,
I want this to be the decision unless.
Well, that's how do others feel about that? And don't mind me, I'm just placing.
I would agree. I think that we should make a decision tonight so that staff can move forward, the community knows what to expect as well. And I think that moving forward, as discussed, option one with the add-ons of the stage in different locations and seeing how, viable it is the right way to move. And if you do come up with a much more creative, functional option, maybe that costs us less money that you want to bring to us instead of, then bring it. Otherwise, get on it. It sounds good, and we can get our summer rocking.
Okay. This is a little bit of composing from the dais, but I want to make sure if people have the resolution in front of them, it would be the current resolution would strike options 2 and 3 from the first page.
Mayor, you need, those are just the suggestions. Section 1 after the therefore clause has the exact what's going to happen, which option is chosen.
I'm looking at the.
Right, on page 2.
Page 2, section 1.
Yeah.
The options above can stay.
Okay, well, I was just trying to make it easier. But if that's what we do, that's what we do. So the idea would be, okay, we leave the two options okay, and we would put in section 1 on page 2, number 1. And then 2 would stay the same. I think I would, based on our discussion, would add a section 3, which would authorize the city to support prospective stage rentals for the remainder of the summer. Is that part of?
If I can make a suggestion, I think what you can do that's a little bit more straightforward is just in section number 1, specify option 1 plus stage rentals not to exceed $25,000.
Okay, we can do that too. So at option number 1, we'd change section 1, adding option number 1, and then after the term Steinbach Pavilion, let's see, to authorize payment for prospective stage rental up to a maximum of $20,000.
I think you want 25,000.
Okay, $25,000, comma, to arrange for placement or in encourage placement on the north end of Front Street?
I don't think you need to get into that kind of detail in the resolution. This
right.
is just a spending matter that's before you.
Okay. Hopefully that is understood by those who are, orientation is understood by those who are working on this.
I understand shelf life is low if we don't try out the north. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. With that, do I have a second?
Second.
Let's take, the only other question that I have for consideration is, do we need anything with respect to ensuring that, I mean, we're assuming that Winterskate is covered with option 1 right now, right? All right, so let's take a roll call, please.
Mayor Lay,
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner,
Yes.
Councilmember Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dickinson,
No.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Bierman,
Yes.
Councilmember Fahy.
Yes.
Mayor, if I may, just to close out, I do want to give a lot of credit to the staff that worked on this for 2 weeks. Vanessa, Rob, Kevin Fryer, facilities manager. I don't think we do that enough. And in this particular situation, they moved mountains and kept street fair going. So sorry for interjecting, but I just want to give credit.
I think one thing in addition, I don't know that anybody appreciates perhaps the speed with which the staff got a structural engineer under extraordinarily short notice. It just doesn't happen, and I really appreciate you and or Director Zaccaro and anybody else who had involvement in that. But absolutely appreciate all of the staff for the whirlwind that was that problem. And frankly, for detecting the problem in the first place. I think we can't, as much as of a challenge as that has been, it's really the fundamentally important task of city government to keep people safe. And the last thing we would ever want is for people to be injured at the street fair, which is a terrific Louisville event. So thank you for all of that. All right, the next matter is an executive session matter under Louisville Charter Section 5-2B, authorized topics including discussion of a personnel matter involving an employee directly appointed by the City Council, and under CRS 24-6-4024F, the city attorney requests the City Council convene an executive session for the purpose of discussion of a personnel matter concerning the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As noted on the meeting agenda, I am requesting an executive session for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter involving an employee directly appointed by the City Council pursuant to Section 5-2B of the city's Home Rule Charter and CRS Section 24-6-4024F, specifically concerning the city manager. Prior to entertaining any motion, the city clerk will read a statement required by the city code.
It is the policy of the city to conduct public business in meetings open to the public. While in executive session, it is inappropriate to take straw votes, keep minutes, or make any final decisions. It is the duty of each council member to ensure executive sessions are conducted in strict compliance with this ordinance, state and federal law, and any applicable provisions of the state and federal constitutions. If at any time the scope, nature, or parameter of this executive session goes beyond the publicly stated topic, it is the responsibility of the city council to terminate and cease any further deliberation within the executive session and return to the public meeting. Only those topics described in city ordinances may be discussed in an executive session. Those topics are summarized as follows. Where federal or state law requires the information being discussed remain confidential, certain personnel matters involving only employees directly appointed by the city council or other personnel matters upon request of the city manager or mayor, consideration of water rights and real property acquisitions and dispositions, but only as to appraisals, value estimates, and strategy, and legal consultation with an attorney representing the city with respect to pending litigation.
Regarding the authority for the executive session, Section 5-2B of the Home Rule Charter authorizes an executive session for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter involving an employee directly appointed by the City Council. An executive session for this purpose is also authorized by the Colorado Open Meetings Law, Section 2464024F of the Colorado Revised Statutes, unless the employee who is the subject of the executive session has requested an open meeting. The city manager has not requested an open meeting. With that, Mayor, you may entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Thank you. I move to go into executive session as follows. I move to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter involving an employee directly appointed by the City Council, and that the executive session also include City Attorney Kathleen Kelly and Special Counsel Merrill Lee Langhoff.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hefner?
Yes.
Councilmember Kern?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Fahy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dickinson? Mayor Lay?
Yes.
Councilmember Bierman?
Yes.
All right, we're back. City Attorney?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council, as noted on the meeting agenda, the executive session was for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter involving the city manager, an employee directly appointed by the city council. No follow-up is requested at this time.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.